Thank you, everybody, for joining. Welcome to our continuation of the Lotalingo webinar series. Today, we have a really great topic, digital nomad visas to Spain. Quick introduction of our agenda today. So I'll introduce who we are on this call, myself and Marta. Marta will lead us in a discussion of the digital nomad visas to Spain. We've collected through Cynthia some of your burning questions, so I'll ask Marta those during the Q&A. We'll do a very fast closing. So introduction, who am I? I'm Ian. I'm the founder of Lotalingo, a global mobility marketplace. And we're really lucky to have Marta here, who is an immigration lawyer and expert in all things immigration to Spain. So thank you, Marta, for being here. And I'll kick it over to you now to cover the digital nomad visas to Spain.
Thank you very much, Ian. It's very nice to meet you all, and thank you very much for joining. So basically, I am, as Ian was saying, I'm an Spanish immigration lawyer, and I'm based in the south of Spain. And I have been helping digital nomad visas since the visa came out. So I can say that all the requirements are constantly changing, or the documents are mainly, the main documents are constantly changing. So it's important that you always seek legal advice before moving forward with your application. So let's start giving a bit of introduction about the digital nomad visa. So what is this visa? This visa is a type of permit that will allow you to move to Spain and work remotely from Spain. So this is a type of visa that it would be can be extended up to 5 years and is for non-EU nationals. It's for non-EU nationals because EU citizens go through a different route. It's also important that the company that you work for is based abroad. So in summary, it's a type of permit that allows you to work remotely from Spain. So what's next? Who can apply for this digital nomad visa? So we have three categories of applicants. We have employees. So the employees are individuals who are essentially employed by a company. So they have pay slips and they have an employment contract or another type of document that can confirm that employment relationship. And I say this because sometimes in the US, they signed job offers and they don't have an employment contract as such. So that could be valid as well. Freelance, individuals who are self-employed and in the country of origin and provide services to a client. Two things that are very important here. First of all, the client has to be a business, a company. It cannot be an individual. And second thing, you must be a freelance in the country of origin. Right now, at the moment, they are asking for proof that you are a freelance in the country of origin. So, for example, if you are registered with a social security institution, you can provide some sort of evidence of that. Or if, for example, you are from the US, you can provide your last tax return. So the last type of category is sole traders, individuals who own their own company and they operate through their own limited company. This type of category is always very difficult because it's always changing, always. There is not expressly defined in the digital nomad legislation and therefore is always subject to ongoing interpretation. They always require additional documents, and it's also crucial that if you are going to apply under this category, that you seek tax advice before moving forward with the application. The requirements or the main requirements for this application. Let's put it into two different groups. So we have the personal requirements. The first one, you cannot, as I was saying, you cannot be an EU national. If you are, you will need to apply through a completely different type of law, through a different type of application. That doesn't mean that you cannot come to Spain and work remotely. It's just that you will need to go under a different visa. Not criminal records. You cannot have criminal records. You will need to provide a criminal record certificate for all the places that you have lived in the last 2 years. And you will also have to sign a declaration confirming that you don't have any criminal records in any of the countries that you have lived in the past 5 years. So criminal records are not allowed in this application. In terms of qualification, you will need to have a university degree, master's degree, like bachelor's degree, master's degree, PhD, or 3 years of experience. Now, in practice, the immigration office is going to request that the bachelor's degree, that the university degree is related to the position that you have. So if you are an engineer, but your bachelor's degree is in history, for example, you will then, that would not be, the immigration office is going to request that you prove experience. So it's important that the university degree is related to your current position. If it's not, then you will need to prove at least 3 years of experience, employment history documents, any sort of document that can prove your 3 years of experience. Now, those could be like the personal requirements, but what about the employment or the company requirements? So first of all, you must have an income. It doesn't matter what type of category you are on. So if you are an employee, if you are self-employed or sole trader, you must receive at least 200% of the Spanish minimum wage. And if you are bringing your spouse or another family member, you must it will be increased 75% for the first family member and 25% for the following family members. What family members? Spouse, descendants, and then the descendants if they are minors. If they are between 18 and 26 years old, you will have to prove that they are dependent on you, or if they are over 26 years old, they will have to be, you would need to prove that they are disabled. Ascendants if they are dependent on you, etc. So one important thing here, and that is being regulated recently, is that also if you have a non-married partner, you can also provide evidence of your relationship, and it could be also eligible if you bring your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your non-married partner. Now, as we were saying, you need to receive 200% of the Spanish minimum wage. How? So if you are if you are an employee, you will need to provide evidence that you receive pay slips, and this is the gross salary that show the pay slip, and 3 bank statements to show that you receive the net income. If you are self-employed, you will need to provide invoices plus the bank statement showing that you received that invoice income. And if you are a sole trader, same. So you will need to provide proof of the income that you receive from that sole traders on bank statements, dividends, pay slips. We will need to check exactly how you receive it if you're a sole trader, but normally it would be with bank statements. Now, what about the relationship? And so if you are an employee, you must have had at least 3 months of employment relationship with your company, okay? So with your employer before the application. And this is important because sometimes people say, well, I am not active right now, but I have 3 months of relationship in the past. No, it has to be before the application. You must have had these 3 months of employment relationship. The same if you are self-employed and you have a business client, that professional relationship must have been 3 months before the application. Another key requirement, and that sometimes people underestimate because they think it's not as important as it actually is the social security. Depending on the category that you are applying for, the social security must be covered somehow. So if you are an employee, you will normally have as we were saying, you will normally pay your social security in your country of origin, And essentially what you can do, or what normally happens in these cases, is that you apply for a social security certificate. In the US, it's called Certificate of Coverage. In the UK, A1 certificates. So this is a bilateral agreement between countries that allows you to keep paying your social security in the country of origin while you are living in Spain. If you are self-employed, you will have to sign a declaration that confirms that you will become self-employed in Spain once the application is approved. So here we see the two different categories. If you are employee, you will normally come with a certificate of social security. If you are self-employed, you will have to sign a declaration that confirms that you will register with the Spanish social security. So this is always, again, is a type of requirement that is always also with interpretation that is changing. So it's important that we see your case, especially if you're a sole trader, and that we evaluate the case in detail, and also if the social security certificate in your country would be valid or not. Other type of requirements. So the company, for example, the company is, if you have an employment relationship or you have a professional relationship with a company, that company must have been active for 1 year before the application. And this means that they must have been in business for 1 year. So if you are, for example, from the US, certificate of good standing, certificate of status. If you are from the UK, for example, certificate of incorporation from Companies House. Those would be the main requirements, essential requirements for the application. In terms of the legal process, so you meet the requirements, we have gathered the essential all the essential documents. What's next? So you have two options here, two routes. You can apply from the consulate, or you can apply as a tourist from Spain, directly from Spain. If you apply from the consulate, you will have to bring, first get an appointment at the consulate. You will need to have an NI number in advance. You will have to submit all the paperwork, all the documents in hard copy in the consulate, and then the consulate will have 10 working days to process the application. The visa that you receive in your passport, stick in your passport, will be valid for 1 year. Then, if you, or another option is that you can also enter Spain as a tourist, and then once you are in Spain as a tourist within your 90 legal days, and this is very important as well, because they are going to check, at the moment, they are checking the entry stamps, the entry annex stamps, to make sure that you are under your 90 days. Now with the EES, the entries annexes system, maybe we see that how that changes, but you must be under your 90 days. You can apply from Spain, and this would be at the Unidad de Grandes Empresas, which is an Spanish immigration office. The application is done online, and when you submit the application online, the immigration office will have 20 working days to give you an answer. The validity of this permit, sorry that I see that it says 1 year here, apologies about that, that is a typo, but the validity of the permit, it will be depending on the social security requirement. That's why it's very important. If you have a certificate of coverage, normally it will have the validity of that certificate of coverage up to a maximum of 3 years. So, for example, in the UK, the A1 certificate, that social security is valid for up to 2 years. So then the permit is normally valid for 2 years. If you come as self-employed and you say, I'm going to register as self-employed in Spain, then they will give you the maximum time, which is 3 years. In the US, the certificate of coverage is for 5 years. So normally for US citizens, it could be for 3 years initially. And then it can be extended 60 days before the expiry date of the permit, you can apply for an extension for two further years. So in summary, the digital nomad visa is a very beneficial digital nomad visa, because if you meet the requirements, which means that if you work for a company that is based abroad and you want to come to Spain, you don't have to be in a specific part of Spain. You can work remotely from anywhere in the country, which sometimes that doesn't happen with some working permits in Spain, that they are restricted to certain areas. Depending on depending on how the category of applicants that you are, you might also even obtain some tax benefits, and it will lead this application counts towards permanent residency and citizenship. So if you are planning to come to Spain and you work remotely, I believe that this is a very suitable option for you. So I believe that we are now going through the Q&A questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Martha. So Cynthia has collected a couple of questions from the audience ahead of this. So let me start. I think you covered this already. The first question is, what are the income requirements? You already mentioned it's 200% of Spain's sort of minimum salary. But does this salary need to be from US companies only? Can it be from any foreign company?
So if you are applying as employee, they are going to evaluate that this income comes from the company in the US that you work for, that you have that employment relationship. So the type of documents that we will use to prove this requirement is the employment contract that has to say your salary, then the pay slip that again, the pay slip, what we will be checking is the gross salary. So sometimes they ask us like, is after tax, before tax? Well, it's always the gross salary. And then the bank statement to prove that you received that amount. But it's always, and that bank statement, the transaction, what we see or what the immigration office is going to see is that bank transaction has the name of the company. So if you are an employee, that income has to come from the company that you are using as your sponsor, as the company that is going to allow you to work remotely from Spain, that you have that employment relationship. Now, if you are self-employed, sometimes self-employed freelance workers, they have different clients. Maybe they don't meet the requirements, the income requirements from one client. You can use different clients, but again, you will have to prove that you have a professional relationship with these different clients, that those clients meet the company requirements, that they are a registered company, that they have been active at least for 1 year, and that you have had at least 3 months of professional relationship with those clients. Now, you will have to also provide the invoices with those clients and the bank statements to show that those documents that you received that income. In terms of sole trader, well, that one is complicated, because the way that we normally for sole traders, you can prove that, well, normally what you will do is to prove that you received the income from your limited company. However, it is true that the way that we work with those type of applications is to show that that company, that limited company that you have, it has at the same time professional relationship with other companies. So that this limited company has other clients, and that you operate with those clients through your limited company. So what we will normally show is that your client pays onto your limited company, and that your limited company pays you in dividends or in salary or in any other form. But that is the way that we would normally work with the sole traders. But it's true that it might not be necessary to show those clients, and that is always different to every single situation.
Understood. And so Thank you for that. And then in terms of geography, right? Let's say I'm a US citizen, but most of my clients or all of my clients are in Canada. Is that okay? In terms of the digital nomad visa, you just have to prove the relationship?
Yes, absolutely. So as long as the client or the company, your employer, is not based in Spain, then that's absolutely fine. If you are self-employed, once the application is approved, you will be also allowed to have clients in Spain, but only up to 20% of the total revenue that you receive. So it's it depending on how many clients and how much income you receive, but the total income cannot come from Spanish clients. But in any case, the main client or the main company that you use for your application has to be based in a different country, and it doesn't matter if it's not in the country that you are coming from. It can be in other countries. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you for that. This one is, okay, I think you answered this. Digital nomad visa, the time will count towards permanent residency or citizenship for the length that you're on it, right? Is that the same whether or not you get granted 3 years initially, 1 year initially? Does it all count, or is it only a fixed amount?
Yes. The digital nomad visa is a residence and work permit, and basically the residency permit is what counts towards a future citizenship. If you come from specific countries, you can apply for citizenship after 2 years. If you don't meet the requirements for the qualification of 2 years, then you have to wait maybe 1 year if you're married. It has different rules, but normally the general rule is 10 years basically to apply for citizenship. So what I want to say here is that the residence permit is what count towards applying in the future for permanent residency after 5 years or citizenship after 10 years living in Spain. So yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Great. Okay, another question, I guess folks have some anxiety here, is what happens if I lose my job, digital nomad job, while I'm on the visa? And is there a grace period for me to try and find another job, either in Spain or out?
So if you lose your job, if you get granted with a digital nomad visa and suddenly you finish your professional relationship or your employment relationship, you will have to notify the immigration office within 30 days since your circumstances change. Normally, this translates to essentially reapplying for, and basically the way that we notify the way that we will notify it is basically depending on whether you have a plan B in those type of cases. So if, for example, you have a different client, that it was a different client or a different company that you are going to start working for, then we will resubmit a new application. We will resubmit a new application and attach a letter explaining that you have that you stopped meeting the requirements with the other company because you got redundant or your employment relationship finished, but that you still meet the requirements with this other company that you have that you are going to start working on. And the thing here, or what is important, is that there is not really a period of grace, the grace period here is that you have to submit this notification within 30 days. But what I believe is here is that if you find another company to work with, another company where you get employed, you don't have to prove that you have been employed for 3 months before the application. That would then really make sense, because here you have stopped working for your company, and what you are saying to the authorities is, hey, I have stopped working for the company that some sort of sponsor me for the initial digital nomad, but I found another company that also meets some of the requirements. So they have been active for 1 year, they're based abroad, etc. And I would like to start working with that company. We will then have to prove those 3 months of employment relationship that is important for the initial application. So essentially, if you lose your job, you have to notify the immigration office within 30 days. And the good thing that, one of the things that they allow you is that you can provide evidence that you still meet the requirements with a different company, and you are exempt from submitting evidence that you have those 3 months of previous relationship.
Got it. Okay, so 30 days to notify, and then you can reapply and submit evidence of that. Okay, great. I think we have time for 2 more questions here. I think one, let's do, so you've already mentioned that dependents can come with you on the digital nomad visa. There's differing thresholds for percentage of income that you have to prove for each additional dependent. I think the second part of this question is interesting, which is that dependent then allowed to work and study in Spain when they come over or not?
Yes, your family members will full right to work, to live and work in Spain. So as we were saying, if you are employee, if you are applying as employee, you will not be allowed to work for any company in Spain that is based in Spain. If you are self-employed, you can up to 20% of the income that you receive. So you can have a client that receive, that you receive up to 20% of the full income that you receive. But your family members, they do not have those restrictions. They can they can be employed in Spain, they can be self-employed in Spain, they can study in Spain, and yeah, they will have those. They will be granted with the work and residence permit rights as well.
Great. Okay, last question. I know this is a bit more, this isn't a purely immigration question. This is actually a tax question, but I know lots of people will wonder about this. So the question is, will Spain tax my US investments, rental income, or capital gains?
So it's important to understand that after spending 183 days in Spain, you will become within 1 year, within the calendar year from January to December, you will become a tax resident in Spain. And this means that you will have to declare all the income that you receive globally, not just in Spain, but also in other countries. This means that obviously there are double taxation agreements in place depending your country of origin. There are also tax benefits as the Beckham law tax regime if you come as employee. So there would be, if you spend those 183 days, obviously there you will become tax resident and you will have to declare those taxes. But it's also important that the tax advice is, that you seek tax advice on your specific circumstances, so they can evaluate all the income that you receive, evaluate your circumstances, and see whether there is a double taxation agreement that they can put in place, whether you can have tax benefits. And it's always what we say to our clients is that before making the decision on whether to come to Spain through the digital nomad visa, seek tax advice, because is very important. Normally in Spain, the tax rates are high compared to other countries, and it's important that you understand the tax implications, especially if you are going to become self-employed in Spain, before submitting the application for digital nomad or before moving to Spain.
Got it. Great. Thank you so much for that detail. So that's all we have time for today. But Marta, thank you so much for joining us. And for the audience, if you're catching up later, just know that as you've seen, these changes are complex. These rules are complex and they change all the time, as Marta said. So just highly recommend at least a consultation or kind of understanding your situation before trying to apply for this. So if you do find that you want to book something with Marta, you can go to lotalingo.com/salas, and you'll be able to set up a consultation there. So thank you guys so much for joining. And Marta, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.